Catholics versus Protestants, who is right? They both claim to follow Jesus. They both read the same Bible. They both say they have the truth. So explain this. Why do they disagree on salvation? On authority? On the church itself? That's not a small difference. That's everything. So let's stop pretending. They can't both be right. Because if one is right, the other is wrong. And if you're on the wrong side, this isn't about being slightly mistaken. This is about how you understand God, how you pray, how you believe you're saved. So the real question isn't, are they different? The real question is, which one is actually telling the truth? And here's the uncomfortable part. Most people never investigate this. They just stay where they were born, repeat what they were taught, and assume they're right. But what if that's exactly how people stay wrong? Stay with me. Because once you see where this division actually started, you won't just understand Catholics and Protestants differently. You'll be forced to examine what you believe and why. Most people think the difference between Catholics and Protestants is just style. Different churches, different music, different traditions. One feels quiet, structured, ancient. The other feels alive, loud, free. And people say, it's all the same, just expressed differently. Sounds nice, comfortable, safe. But that's not what's actually happening. Because if it were just style, they wouldn't disagree on authority, on who speaks for God, on how someone is saved. Those are not surface-level differences. Those are foundation-level differences. And here's where most people get it wrong. They assume both sides are basically saying the same thing, just using different language. But they're not. They're starting from different sources, following different lines of authority, and arriving at different conclusions about truth. So this isn't about preference. It's about where truth actually comes from. And if that's true, then the real question isn't, why are they different? The real question is, where did the split actually begin? And who moved away from what? Because until you answer that, you're not choosing based on truth. You're choosing based on what you're used to. And that's a dangerous place to be. There's a pattern behind this, not just in the Bible, but in the church itself. Most people look at Catholics and Protestants and see two groups, two traditions, two ways of doing things. But that's not what this is. This is a fracture, a break. And like any break, it didn't happen randomly. It started somewhere. It moved in a direction, and it left a trail. Most people never follow that trail. They inherit a label. Catholic, Protestant, and they stay there. But if truth actually matters, you don't start with the label. You start with the origin. Because somewhere between the early church and what exists today, something changed. Authority shifted. Interpretation shifted. And once that shifted, everything else followed. So here's what we're going to do. We're not going to argue emotions. We're not going to repeat what we've been told. We're going to go back to the beginning, back to the early church, and trace the line forward. Because once you see where the division actually came from, you won't just know what's different. You'll understand why. Go back to the beginning. Not a building, not a denomination. A room. Doors closed, voices low. People watching the street through a narrow opening. This is the early church. No cathedrals, no stage lights, no denominations. Just men and women holding on to what they received. The apostles are still alive. Men who walked with Jesus Christ, heard him speak, watched him die, saw him alive again. When questions come up, they don't guess. They don't debate endlessly. They go to the apostles, and the apostles answer, not based on opinion, but on what they were given. This is how the church begins, not as a collection of independent thinkers, but as a body guided by authority that traces back to Christ. Years pass, then decades. The apostles begin to die, one by one, and the question becomes unavoidable. When the apostles are gone, who speaks with that authority? Because the church doesn't disappear, it grows. Cities, regions, nations, more people, more questions, more interpretations. And now something new enters the picture. Distance. Distance from the original witnesses. Distance from the voice of the apostles. And when distance increases, interpretation increases. And when interpretation increases, disagreement follows. So the tension you see today didn't start yesterday. It didn't start with modern churches. It started the moment the church had to answer one question. After the apostles, who has the authority to define truth? Watch what happens next. The apostles are gone, but the church doesn't stop. It organizes. Cities begin to form centers: Rome, Antioch, Alexandria. Leaders rise. not random leaders. Men chosen, trained, sent, hands laid on heads, prayers spoken, authority passed on, not written down first. Passed on, guarded, lived. When disputes break out, they don't split. They gather, a room again. Voices raised this time. Scripture opened, memories recalled, witnesses speak. And then a decision is made, not by one person reading alone, but by the church together. This is how truth is handled, not privately, not independently, but within a body that believes it has received something and must protect it. You see it clearly in the earliest centuries. Letters travel between churches. Bishops correct errors. Councils form. Questions about Christ. Who is he? Fully God, fully man. Questions about Scripture. What belongs, what doesn't. These are not small issues. And yet the church doesn't fragment into hundreds of interpretations. It holds. Why? Because there is a structure holding it together. A sense that truth is not invented, it is received. And once received, it must be preserved. So here's the pattern. From the beginning, truth is not treated as something every individual defines for themselves. It is something handed down, protected, guarded. And if that pattern is true, then something should feel off today, because now everyone reads the same Bible and comes to different conclusions. So the question opens again, what changed? Now watch the pattern tighten. Same church, more people, more pressure. Persecution hasn't disappeared. Believers are still being arrested, still being killed. And yet, inside the church, something else is happening. Questions are getting sharper. Not just how do we live, but me? Who is Jesus exactly? Fully God, fully man, both? You'd think everyone would agree. They don't. Different teachers start saying different things. Some say he only appeared human. Some say he was created. Some say he's less than the Father. And suddenly, this isn't a small disagreement anymore. This is about who Christ is. So what does the church do? Do they split into groups and say, believe whatever makes sense to you? No. They gather again. Leaders from different regions travel. Long distances, dangerous roads. They sit together. They argue, they listen. They test everything against what was received. And then they define it. Clearly, publicly, this is truth. This is error. Not everyone likes it. Some walk away, but the church holds the line again. Why? Because they believe truth is not discovered individually. It is guarded collectively. Now pause. Look at the pattern again. When confusion rises, the answer is not independence. It's authority acting together. A visible church, speaking with one voice. So here's the tension building. If that's how truth was handled from the beginning, then how did we end up here? Thousands of groups, thousands of interpretations, all claiming the same Bible, all claiming to be right. That's not a small shift. That's a complete reversal. So again, what changed? And when did it break? Now push it to the edge. Same pattern. Different century. The church is no longer hiding. No more small rooms. Now there are buildings, public gatherings, recognized leaders. And something else. A center begins to stand out. Rome. Not because it's perfect. Not because it has no problems. But because of what it's connected to. Peter, the apostle. The one who stood up first, spoke first, led first. So when disputes rise, people don't just argue locally anymore. They look outward. Letters are sent. Appeals are made. Voices from other regions speak. But Rome is not ignored. Not treated as just another opinion. There's weight there. Not absolute control, but undeniable influence. And this keeps happening, century after century. When division threatens, the instinct is not, everyone decide for themselves. The instinct is, return to what was handed down, return to what is consistent, return to what is connected to the apostles. And for a long time, that holds, not perfectly, but enough to keep the church on turn. Now pause, because this is where the tension peaks. You have a church that began unified, a pattern of authority being passed down, a system that resolves conflict collectively, a center that carries apostolic weight. And then, suddenly, you have division. Not small disagreements, a fracture, permanent, east and west split. Later, another split, even deeper. Now multiple groups, multiple interpretations, multiple authorities, all pointing back to the same beginning. That doesn't happen quietly. That doesn't happen randomly. Something broke. Something shifted hard enough to divide what had held together for centuries. So the question is no longer theoretical. It's unavoidable. What caused the break, and who actually stayed with the original pattern? Now go deeper. Not history, meaning. Because underneath all of this, there's a word most people skip past. Church or Eucharist. In the original language of the New Testament, the word is ecclesia. Not a building, not a denomination. A gathered people, called out, assembled, visible. You can see them, hear them, be corrected by them. This matters because from the beginning, faith was never meant to be lived alone, and truth was never meant to be decided in isolation. Now look at another layer. The word for tradition in Scripture, paradosis, it literally means something handed over, not invented, not created later. Passed down, surmassed down, from one to another, carefully, deliberately. And Scripture itself shows this pattern. Teach what you received, hold fast to what was given, guard the deposit. Create your own understanding. So now the structure becomes clearer. Scripture is written, yes, inspired, authoritative, but it exists inside something, a living body, a church that teaches, preserves, and hands it on. So the real tension isn't Bible versus church. It's this. Is truth something you interpret on your own, or something you receive within a body that came before you? Because depending on your answer, everything changes. Authority, interpretation, unity. And suddenly, this isn't just about history anymore. This is about how you decide what is actually true. Now connect everything. From the beginning, truth wasn't scattered. It was given. Given to the apostles. Lived out in a visible church. Passed down carefully through generations. When confusion came, they didn't go separate directions. They came together. When disagreement rose, they didn't say, decide for yourself. They said, return to what was received. That's the pattern. Clear, consistent, unbroken for centuries. And then the shift. A new idea begins to take hold. Not loudly at first, but powerfully. The idea that the final authority is not the church that guards the teaching, but the individual reading the text. Scripture remains, but the structure around it changes. No longer Scripture within the church. Now, Scripture interpreted by the individual. And once that happens, everything follows. Different interpretations, different conclusions, different churches. Not because people are evil, not because they don't care about God, but because the starting point changed. One side holds truth is received, guarded, and interpreted within a continuous body. The other holds truth is found in Scripture, and each believer must interpret it faithfully. Same Bible, different foundation. And from that foundation, two completely different systems emerge. So now the question becomes clear. Not emotional, not cultural, structural. Which model actually matches the original pattern? Because whichever one does, that's where continuity is. That's where authority holds. That's where the line doesn't break. And once you see that, this isn't just about Catholics versus Protestants anymore. It's about whether truth is something you inherit or something you reconstruct. So bring this back to you. Not history, not labels. Maybe you've never really questioned this. You grew up in a church. You stayed there. You assumed it was right. Or maybe you're tired. You've tried to read the Bible, and it feels confusing. Different voices, different interpretations. Everyone sounds confident. And you don't know who to trust. Listen, this isn't about winning an argument. This is about something deeper. Because how you answer this shapes how you approach God. Do you stand alone, trying to figure everything out for yourself? Or do you step into something that existed before you? Something that claims to carry what was handed down? Maybe you're searching for clarity. Maybe you're asking God quietly, show me what's true. If that's you, don't ignore that. Follow it. Ask, seek, knock. Not casually. Honestly, because truth is not afraid of being examined. And God is not hiding from you. So take this seriously, not with fear, but with intention. And start asking a better question. Not just, where do I feel comfortable? But where is the truth that actually traces back to the beginning? And when you find it, don't look away.